You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron alongside these other guys. Alongside Chris Babos, Liam Jenkins, Corey Naito, Mike Greger, and Morgan Burkett. How you guys feeling today?
Doing well, man. Doing well.
Good. Yeah, can't complain. I just want to preface this by gate crashing and apologizing for there being no streams this week. Just because, I didn't want to. I felt like with a 2-week wait, it's hard enough with 1 week where you don't want to overlap and repeat yourself. And I felt with a 2-week, we did really heavy the first week. On the second, I was like, this is gonna be the same show about 17 times. So let's pause a minute. And now we've got one big bumper edition on a Saturday morning to kick us off. So I'm just happy to come in and gate crash FTB again, and I'm making it a bit of a habit now.
It's not a bad thing. I almost forgot the name of the show today.
I've seen Martin's comment.
Yeah, this happens pretty often, Martin. Oh God. But guys, it's Super Bowl Eve. It's Super Bowl Saturday, if that's a thing. Eagles Chiefs tomorrow. It's been a very, very spectacular season for the Eagles from the addition of Saquon Barkley, Cornell Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, even Zach Bond. We won't mention Bryce Huff because I don't think anybody knows where he is.
Who?
But looking at year to date, I mean, how do you guys feel overall this season? Like, win or lose tomorrow, do you guys feel like this is a step in the right direction, or is it kind of, the time is now, put your foot on the gas and make it happen?
I mean, it's a tricky one because I feel like I always go back to the bye week and how it was very much panic stations for a while. And I know I wasn't the only one in being a little bit apprehensive about the way the team was playing up to that point. But I also don't think you can fault the turnaround whatsoever. And I think we've now at a point, weirdly, of regardless what happens in the Super Bowl, where it's just stability. If the team loses, there will be some fans ultimately that will start calling for Sirianni's head because it's twice that he's not got it done. But at the same time, all he's done is just win. And it's that awful thing to go back to. And then you might not like how he does it. But when you look at this season, when you look at the amount of playoffs that he's been in, when you look at Jalen's progression, and I say progression quite loosely. Because as a passer, we can all agree that it looks different. But I think in terms of the way he understands the game and the way he contributes to the team, just his whole changing philosophy, that doesn't really happen without the head coach. Sirianni's going to stay. They've signed a load of their key players to long-term deals now. A load of the other ones are 7 years old and it's their rookie season or second season, so they're not going anywhere. So regardless of what happens, you're just in a point where this is a championship team for at least the next 2 to 3 years. And I think that's something to be excited about no matter what happens on Sunday.
Yeah, I think it's one of those teams that you take 5-6 years and look back on and you're just kind of shocked at how good of a team and how well it's built. There's teams that have as many superstars. There's teams that have as much firepower, but just from top to bottom, how this team's built, I think it's a really special team. And like Liam talked about, that mix of being the youngest defense in the NFL and being here, and it just projects well. I'm sure we'll talk about it later too, but money wise and availability wise, there's a lot of options for the Eagles in the future just to add to this team. So it's a great starting point. They're in the Super Bowl. As much focus as was spent on other young teams that were getting success in the playoffs, I think the Eagles were kind of overlooked in that sense, but they're in a great spot going forward. And I think this is one of those teams you look back on and just don't realize in the moment how spectacularly built and talented this team is.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at how the roster is constructed, I mean, this team's set up for long-term success. Look, when they stumbled there and were 2-2, everyone was down on them. Look, I was the biggest offender. I was talking crap on everyone. I was talking crap on Hurts, Sirianni, Kellen Moore, Huff obviously slay everyone except for Saquon Barkley, I guess. But they figured it out, and here they are. And when you look at the roster, you're always like, they always have the best roster in every matchup. So it was just a matter of them figuring it out, which they did. And now, like I've been saying throughout this playoff run, I am so overconfident. I've been throughout this playoff run. Now, less overconfident going into the Super Bowl because it's Mahomes and the Chiefs on the other side. But I'm still more confident this time than I was last time.
Yeah, I think to piggyback off of what Mike said with confidence, I think that's where a lot of people are as an Eagles fan. This year is different because they've shown us why we should be confident in this team. They have a well-balanced offensive attack. They've got the best running back in the league. They've got a quarterback who's playing clean and efficient football for over 2.5 months. The defense has a wonderful mix of rookies who have just absolutely taken games over with DeJean and Mitchell, and then you've got the veterans mixed in, and even some of the younger guys from the Georgia Bulldog squad really starting to come into their own. So I think for this team, yeah, this is we should win this game. I think they're the better team than the Chiefs. You can't take away what the Chiefs have done. I'm not saying the Chiefs are a bad team in any regard, but they have that aura. They've got that magician-like way to find ways to squeak out wins with Mahomes. But for this season, I don't know why you wouldn't be going into tomorrow feeling confident and expecting, hey, even though they're going to be losing some guys, most likely they're going to have to hire another offensive coordinator for Jalen Hurts. They have a very good nucleus for years to come, and that really falls on the shoulders of Howie Roseman. I know Howie has had some tough drafts in the past, but last couple of years he has been spot on. And I think if he wins the Super Bowl this year, I think it really helps him solidify a case to make it to Canton whenever he decides to retire. I think he's become one of the top GMs in the game now, and then for the whole body of work, I think he's been sensational.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, going back to what Brian asked, and is it time to put the foot on the throat and get it done? You know, yes, obviously Philadelphia wants to win a Super Bowl, wants to parade down Broad Street, but the team is really set up phenomenally well on the offensive side of the ball. Mekhi Becton's the only notable free agent this year. Even next year, they're still fairly well set up. I think it's Goddard and Cam Jurgens are the biggest free agents, and that's next year. So, and then on the defensive side of the ball, you're anchored by essentially 4 rookie contracts: Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. When you have that kind of talent at that age on those contracts, it allows you to fill out your roster, and that's exactly what Howie Roseman has been able to do. Joe Banner was all talking with Rich Eisman earlier this week on his pod, and it was one of those things he was in awe of the way that Howie Roseman's been able to construct this defense and how good they are as the number 1 defense with so many young players. It's a completely different component that Kansas City saw 2 years ago. And then you have the complete addition, which we haven't even really touched on yet, in Saquon Barkley added to the Birds. So it is definitely not the same Eagles team that lost 2 years ago. And as I told Brian yesterday, I say this lovingly. What kind of psychopath puts his worst moment of his life on his wallpaper screen? Jalen Hurts did that. That man is on a mission. It might not be this year. He's going to get one in the next couple of years, though.
And let's stay on that note, right? Because I feel like that's the elephant in the room at the moment. That's the hot topic where it seems like the entire media base just loves to shit on Jalen Hurts for some weird reason. And it blows my mind. Looking at his numbers this season, they weren't incredibly impressive, right? We saw that he took a backseat to Saquon, but they were efficient. 18 passing touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He had a completion percentage of 68%, which is the highest of his career. Granted, he threw for less than 3,000 yards, but he was taken out for the last couple games of the season because of Frankie Louvu's dirty ass. How do you guys feel about Jalen Hurts and what this means to him? I mean, to me, like it feels like, you know, it's cemented. Like, this guy is the franchise quarterback. I don't care how they win. The fact of the matter is that they do win with him, and he never loses his composure. Week in, week out, the guy he's level headed. And I showed you guys that article by I think it was EJ Smith, where, you know, he apparently talks a lot of shit in the background, and I love it. I'm hoping that happens in the Super Bowl. But where do you guys stand on this on Jalen Hurts and where he stands in the league as a top quarterback?
I think it has to be evaluated with context, and that's what a lot of people miss, because I don't think they're doing it in a way that most other teams or analysts or fans are gonna like get behind. And that's been the theme all season, is if you look at just typically how you value quarterbacks, it's passing yards, it's touchdowns, it's interceptions. And I think like this has been, and we spoke about it a lot, the first season where they've gone, right, it's a complete change of identity. We're going to set up the run and we're going to go all in on Saquon Barkley. And to do that, you've got to protect the football. He's had the highest completion percentage of his career. He's had the lowest turnovers of his career. And he's still putting the team in a position to win. Now, when he is throwing the ball, are there mechanical concerns? Has he maybe regressed a little bit? You can definitely argue that. But you also don't get there if you've got someone like a postseason Sam Darnold, let's say, like who's just going to turn the ball over and cost you. If you can't set up the run and you can't make those 5 to 7 yard completions, you're not going to be able to run on 3rd and 3. It just doesn't work like that. So I think that the NFC Championship game was particularly validating because it was the first time in a long time we've seen Jalen Hurts step out of that comfort zone. And as he said in the presser afterwards, that Sirianni took the straitjacket off somewhat. So we all know he's got it in there. I just think it's a very conscious decision to play a different way. And I'm happy Morgan's coming up next because he can probably piggyback off this a little bit. I noticed earlier in the year that it felt like the passes specifically were being targeted lower at the receivers. And I've probably bored so many people in this stream over the last year, but they weren't sailing on players anymore. You still get the occasional one, but typically it's like the ball is thrown towards the lower abdomen area, typically because if they're all running curls and comebacks and the player's lower, then the defender can't get in and make a tackle. It creates a massive yards after the catch opportunity. All of that, I think, is by design. So as a quarterback, in the raw sense of the word, as how, an MVP voter would view it, probably not been the best season of all time. If you look at a quarterback from someone that is the engine of that team and can get them into winning position and play the way the team needs him to, I think he's come on leaps and bounds.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I mean, we've saw with the MVP award, stats don't matter anyways, right? So, what are we talking about, right? So, I think that Lee makes a great point. Like, there's the little parts of his game, and this is, I think, when you're looking at Jalen Hurts' legacy, the little parts of his game, the stuff that he had trouble with, and so much of our focus was on what Jalen Hurts doesn't do well early on in his career. He doesn't do this well. He doesn't do this well. Now it's we're putting a ceiling on him and going, hey, well, listen, like he's not throwing for X amount of yards. Like, well, all the things that we had complained about up until now, he's fixed, right? He's went and done that. And, they talk about spectacular throws and we've seen examples of that. He can definitely, throw those deep balls and his ball placement's gotten a lot better. But I just feel like the biggest leap and bound he's taken is in his decision making, and that was one of those things that was a big question mark. And I think that's when you start to get in that conversation of changing OCs every year and different schemes. Like a lot of those interceptions, I remember looking at them and like, where are you looking? Like where's that ball going? And a lot of the times we're thinking, oh, that's Jalen Hurts, but realistically, that's you learning an entire new system. Your eyes are in a bad spot. You're not sure where the ball's supposed to be going. The timing's off, whatever that is. A lot of that does have to do with the OC. And I think you look at other quarterbacks we're comparing him to, they're very similar OCs, at least for a couple years. There's going to be turmoil. There's going to be change, but nothing like Jalen Hurts' experience. And then I think on top of that, we talk about, statistics and all that. And like, for me, a long time, the ability to win is a quarterback stat, and I think that realistically we've overlooked that. Like you talk about other quarterbacks, like Baker Mayfield coming into the league, he's always a winner. Goes to the Browns, who don't know how to win. He gets out of the Browns, goes to the Panthers, who also don't know how to win. You finally put him on a team where there's some framework there. He's just a winner, and that is a quarterback stat to me. And I think that Jalen Hurts is a winner, and you don't question that in a quarterback. His ability to win games and do what he needs to do to win games. Realistically, again, I think it's one of those things we look back on. If you're an OC, if you're a GM, like Jalen Hurts is the kind of quarterback you're looking for. I mean, how many teams have struggled to find these young quarterbacks, looking for guys that can throw a beautiful deep ball, guys that can, have the arm talent, all this stuff, and they don't win. It doesn't matter. Look at Trevor Lawrence, man. Like, you can have all the, tangibles in the world, and we're knocking Jalen Hurts for having talent around him. Well, Trevor Lawrence should be a lot better. There's no talent around him, right? It's not a knock on Trevor Lawrence, right? So, all the excuses, all the reasons we have to not credit Jalen Hurts, I feel like they're slowly starting to fall by the wayside, and we're starting to see who this guy is at his core, and he's a winner, man.
Yeah, I think you guys both hit the nail on the head. He's just got all the intangibles. He just wins all the time. And he had these issues coming out of college, right, with the arm strength and accuracy and all that stuff, kind of why he slipped. But he's been a winner everywhere he's been, and we're kind of seeing that. And just remember that, I've been very critical of him with holding the ball too long and not making throws and not reading defenses. But he's kind of changed those perceptions, especially in the NFC Championship game. The first play of the game when he switched the play back to Saquon, 60-yard touchdown. And then two of the most beautiful balls he's ever thrown, I think, in his career were in that game. The first one to Devontae was like a 10, 12-yarder, perfect throw. And then later in the game to AJ down the other sideline, perfect ball placement, beautiful lob. You can't throw it any better than that. So what I'm getting at is, I think, with Jalen, you have to put it in context, as Liam said, and just understand that he's not going to be your prototypical quarterback that sits in the pocket, slings it, that always has the stats and all that. But if you watch a full game, you watch him play, he passes the eye test in the regard that he's a winner. And you can look at guys like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, racking up all these MVP awards, but neither one of them has been to a Super Bowl yet. So, and Jalen's gone into his second in 3 years. So, I think that tells you all you need to know. In terms of where he ranks, again, I don't know, Brian. I don't know where to rank him. Because if I'm ranking,
he's top 2 when he's not number 2. Let's just say that, all right?
Right now he's top 2, but again, you got to put it in context, because if you're just I need one quarterback to make one throw to win the game, I don't know if he's in my top 5 in that scenario, right? But in terms of everything that he brings to the table, yeah, he's definitely in the top 5.
I knew you would choose Kenny Pickett. I knew it.
Yeah, you guys have said a lot about it. I think the criticism that he gets is a lot to do with the contract they gave him. $255 million. We're so used to watching this game. All right, you're making that money. You should be averaging over 300 a game, scoring 2 to 3 touchdowns through the air. And with his legs, he should be averaging 1. So the expectations, I think, have been super high because of the contract he got after such a great year a couple seasons ago. And you don't need him to do all that because of the talent that's around him. And don't blame Jalen. That's a part of being a good team. It goes to my point earlier about Howie Roseman. He's putting his quarterback in a position to succeed. For me, Justin Herbert, to me, is the most overrated quarterback in the league. And everybody's like, oh, I'll take him over Jalen. Well, why? What have you seen from Justin Herbert other than a big arm that's not accurate a lot of times because he has a big arm? I don't need Jalen to throw for 250, 285 yards if they're winning. What I love is he just embodies that winner mentality. I grew up idolizing Derek Jeter. That's all Jeter cared about. He didn't care how they won. He just wanted the World Series. That's what Jalen Hurts at least reminds me of, is he doesn't care if he throws the ball 10 times or 40 times, as long as the Eagles are winning and getting to the Super Bowl and putting themselves in a chance to make history year in and year out. That's all he cares about. And for me, I think that's worth the $255 million, and you're not dealing with distractions. You're not dealing with an unhappy quarterback. Yeah, did him and AJ probably have some issues throughout the last couple of years? Sure, but they're grown men, and they've talked about it. And the biggest thing is they didn't let it leak into this year, which was one of the biggest questions coming into the season. So I think the criticism is just more so talking points at this point, especially at the national level. They got to fill 2 weeks worth of something. And then obviously all season, I know Jalen's been getting criticized, but the man is a winner, and that's all you can take. And that's all I want as a quarterback, is you're making good decisions. You're not putting the ball in harm's way. I just looked up the last interception Jalen threw was the Dallas game 9 weeks ago. I'll take that all day, every day from my quarterback. He's been flawless in the playoffs Just let him ride. He's perfectly fine.
It's certainly not a mistake that Howie Roseman has filled this locker room with winners. And it reminded me of a quote that I saw from 2022. I did to track down. And he basically talked about how it started in 2021. They played the couple of Alabama guys, including Devonta Smith. And it reminded him at that point that the competition matters. And his quote was, "It takes a big jump in competition. The guys that are playing against are the guys that are playing on Sundays." That to me was a massive statement saying, yes, you can go and get somebody like a Quinyon Mitchell from Toledo, and he can definitely have success. The core of your team needs to be winners, needs to be your Jalen Carter, needs to be, the guys from Alabama, the Devonta Smiths and stuff like that. And that's not a mistake. And there's a reason that the Eagles are back in the Super Bowl. The second time out of 3 years, same reason Kansas City is in the Super Bowl for 3 straight years. And it's just simply a matter of putting the right team together. Having winners is a big part of that. And I think you guys all hit the nail on the head that Jalen Hurts definitely fits that bill.
I froze for a second. I'm sorry. I'm having yeah. So
He's got dad brain.
I do have dad brain right now.
I thought he just turned into like Jordan Belfort. He just freezes before saying, "I'm not leaving." Just sort of stood there and went.
You know, that's because I know
it.
Chris has to leave at 9:45, so I didn't know if Chris was gonna end with that and do his goodbye. So I was waiting for it. I didn't want to
Little
jump
mic
it.
drop.
He literally just mic dropped on. He's just 8 miles. I mean, I'm like, oh shit. Okay, cool.
I know it's a little early. Can I give my prediction?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, go ahead. Awesome. I do have a Birds win. I'm going back on the score. You know what? I'm going to go with the original one I told the guys this morning. We're going to be partying on Broad Street, 34-21, Philadelphia Eagles. Let's go, Birds.
Go Birds.
Go Birds.
Enjoy the Super Bowl, everyone. I got some flyer stuff to take care of. So we'll see you around.
Cool.
Take care, Chris.
Thanks for coming, brother.
Bye, guys. Thanks for having me.
So you guys hit the nail on the head a lot with the Jalen Hurts conversation. I feel like we kind of just talk a little bit more about the offense before we go to the defense, which I already know Morgan is drooling about. Saquon Barkley, though, I mean, when he was signed, we were all shocked by it because it was a move that nobody expected. That people were starting to talk about, but it's Philly. We never invested heavy money in the running back position. Going with Saquon, how impressed are you guys with the fact that the Eagles offensive coaching staff actually went ahead and just said, hey, we're going to focus on the run game. We're not going to focus on QB stats, because that was a rumor years ago where it's kind of like Jeffrey Lurie wants his quarterbacks to be the top tier. He wants his quarterbacks to put up top tier numbers. Are you guys impressed with the fact that the Eagles did pretty much audible into leaning on Saquon, or was it kind of just, bound to happen at some point?
I mean, I would say so. I think particularly when you look back at a couple of the previous regimes, I think the Doug Peterson one is particularly important, where it would feel like Howie Roseman would want a very specific type of player, like across the board. You look at someone like Rasul Douglas was a great example. You look at a couple of the running backs they brought in. It was like they were trying to do things a very particular way, and then the coaching staff would almost like not bite back, but there would be like a reluctance to use them that way. So I always go back to Rasul Douglas as a great opportunity, because it was so obvious to me that he was going to be a really solid corner. And you're just being strung out on an island on a scheme that doesn't quite fit his skill set. And then he leaves Philadelphia and he's had a good career. And I think they've learned from that. And he wasn't the only player. There were a few of them. Like, I think Jalen Reagor might be the most glaring example ever of a player that fit the mold perfectly. And I remember, like, I was higher on him than wrongfully any other receiver nearly in that entire class, from a point of what the Eagles needed. It just sucked that the coaching staff went a different way. He turned out to be not what he thought he was. And it happened. But what you've got now, I think, is a real synchronicity between the coaching staff and the front office. And I don't think that's happened for a long time. And you could argue that the Jalen Hurts selection was another one that almost didn't work out, where they got him in and then Doug Peterson's, well, you got Carson there. I don't know what that's going to work out like. And just as time's gone on, I feel like now it's someone like Vic Fangio is perfect for it. And they've definitely had teething problems, but Vic has been around the NFL long enough to know the kind of player he wants, and around enough GMs that have been successful to go, okay, what you say is fine. Like, I can bend it to this, and his scheme's open enough to move it around. So I think when you take all of that in, like if you get Harry Roseman coming to you and saying, look, we're going to go out and sign the best running back in all of football, are you going to fuck this up? Excuse my French, I forgot it's a Sunday morning. Like if they say that, like the coach is obviously going to go, well, no, because it's Saquon Barkley. Like we'll do whatever's needed. And it always goes back to me to Sirianni's opening press conference when he was like, he wants to put his players in the best position to win. And it was such a contrast to what we saw with Doug Peterson at the end of his tenure. And you often see it with new coaches and you never really see it sustained. It's always like, yeah, whatever gets the guys winning, whatever they do is best. And then a year in, they go on like an ego trip and just insistent that their rigid scheme works when it absolutely doesn't. This is the first time that hasn't happened. And at Sirianni, to his fault at times, it's gone a bit against him. But he has gone, do you know what? Fine, play calling isn't my cup of tea. I might ruin this a bit. I'm going to pass it off. Fine, this ain't going to work. We'll let Kellen do it this way. And you just bring it all together and it's this perfect storm of awareness. I think it's the best way to say it without rambling. It's just that everyone's so aware that how special Saquon is, how rare this opportunity is. And now that the people are in the right spots to build the team the right way, you're not going to have these misfits and wasted potential and wasted players that, you know, otherwise would kind of stall out. So surprised in one way that it's been such a swift transition, but also just pleasantly happy that it has happened and that everyone's on the same page, because it has been a long time since that's been the case.
I like to play on words with the swift transition there. That was yeah, I mean, you know, talking about the front office and even the coaching staff, like I feel like, you know, Liam hit it on the head. Like they're just adaptable and they learn. And you see so many GMs and coaches just kind of stick with their guns and do things their way, especially when they've had some success at times. And it would have been easy for Howie Roseman to do the same. I know we're talking about Saquon here, but it's a great point, right? They've adapted, and that's what makes a good, sustainable, you know, team. And I think that, like, you see how they saw that with the team that the Eagles are going against and the Chiefs. You know, there's been times that they were a run first team when Pacheco was, you know, really looking good. They're like, hey, we're just going to run the ball. It's working. And I think there's a lot of teams that don't do that, right? There's a lot of teams that, you know, say, hey, we're gonna stick with our quarterback. He's going to throw for 40 times a game, and if that doesn't work, we're not going to win, right? And I think that that's been one of the things that the Eagles have done really well. I think, you know, speaking about this game coming up, we talked about 2 years ago, you know, Nick Bolton was really the X factor on that defense. He had a heck of a game, caused a lot of problems for the Eagles offense, and they just didn't have the guy to respond to that on offense, right? You kind of lean on Jalen Hurts, and as good as he played, you needed one more guy to really step it up, and, you know, Miles Sanders wasn't going to be that guy. So I have a lot more hope this year, because I just think that Saquon's one of those guys. You know, you talk about Mahomes' magic on the other side, and you just can't count him out, and you can't count out him just doing something incredible. It's the same for Saquon. And then realistically, it's those kind of teams that win Super Bowls. At the end of the day, there's a couple of guys that now have bought into that. Like, we see Dallas Goedert making some plays that, you know, in the past, you know, maybe he just gets tackled, and now he's throwing double stiff arms. You don't think that watching Saquon do incredible things has kind of lit a fire under this team and said, hey, do you know what? Let's try some crazy things. Let's try a backwards hurdle, right? Like that matters. And I think it's permeated. And so not only is he an incredible player on the field, but what he's done for this team and allowing them to believe and push each other and, you know, try some incredible things. You can't say enough about the player he is, but you also can't say enough about the man he seems to be in the locker room. And I think that that's really the X factor here. You see it honestly in interviews, in the way that they're playing. They're all just banded together. We talked about, you know, the Eagles going forward for the future. Like, it just bodes well. You're building a winning culture here. You're building a championship culture. And at the end of the day, you're adding on that X factor that Saquon just might take it to the house on every time he touches the ball. Like, you can't count him out. It's just going to be exciting. As good as that defense is, Saquon just might be better.
Yeah, Liam, I've been thinking about the Saquon thing a lot, just in terms of, and this is my biggest takeaway from it was, the Eagles get trashed. Going back all the way to like the Andy Reid days. If they lose, they didn't run the ball enough, right? If they win, no one cares. No one even looks at those stats. With the Saquon thing, I don't think they've ever had a running back that they trusted to run the ball like this and grind him like they do. Because even if you go back to 2018 when they won a Super Bowl, I mean, they had Clement and LeGarrette Blount. They had to make a trade at the deadline because they weren't confident in the run game. So they had like this three-headed monster, but they didn't like trust one of them to just do the job. Miles Sanders, second-round pick. He was okay. Wasn't a great. I mean, he could pick up the block here and there. He learned how to do that, I think, eventually. But he stunk out of the backfield. He had stone hands. He couldn't catch anything. And I remember watching a lot of tape of him. Yeah, if he had a lane, he hit it, but he couldn't cut in, cut out. He couldn't make that extra move that breaks you free like Saquon can do. So my biggest takeaway from the Saquon move is they wanted someone they could trust. They could put out there all 3 downs, and behind that line, we're reaping the rewards of all of that. And I don't think it's a surprise. Maybe it's a surprise that they invested money into the position, but I think they did a lot of research on this guy, talked to a lot of people, probably had an inkling of what he was going to bring to the locker room in terms of the leadership and his ability to kind of be fit that culture that Sirianni created. And man, we're reaping the rewards of the best running back in football. And possibly we're going to see, I think we've already seen maybe the greatest season out of a running back in NFL history. But if he gets 30 more yards, then it's definitely, without question, the greatest season from a running back, maybe a player ever to do it. So that's my take on that. I got to jump at 10. So I'm going to give you a quick prediction here. I like what Chris said. I'm kind of rethinking it. I like to see a more comfortable victory, but I'm sticking with my reverse of the last Super Bowl, 38-35. Birds come out on top this time. I think in terms when we're talking about Saquon, I think we're going to see him. We're going to see him a lot, obviously, but I think we're going to see a lot more of him maybe in the screen game, catching some passes, because this Chiefs defense, Spagnuolo, I mean, he loves to blitz, right? I'll bring up these numbers I was looking at this morning. The Chiefs blitzed 35.6% of the time, and they got pressure 43.8% of the time. So they're bringing the pressure. So Hurts got to get the ball out quick. We already talked about that. He's kind of corrected some of that stuff. But I would look for like these drop-offs. Get him out to Barkley, get some blockers downfield in front, let him break free, and Goddard, I think, is going to have a big game too. So I would keep an eye on that. Got to stop the blitz, and that's it. I think we're going to see, knock on wood, another parade down Broad Street. That's where I'm at. Go Birds.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Mike.
Yeah, Mike kind of. What'd you say?
I said before you give your thing, you do have a request in the chat. So once you give your take, feel free to jump on that.
Oh man, yeah, I see that right there. Boy, oh boy.
Right. So do your thing, man.
Yeah, I haven't really looked up props, but it'd probably be, I got one in mind. Anyway, what Mike said about Saquon, he kind of said a lot of what I was going to say. I think it comes down to Howie Roseman seizing an opportunity. He saw the rest of the league didn't want to pay these running backs that were kind of getting a little older. They had a lot of mileage under their legs. But look what's happened. Barkley has been arguably the best free agent signing in Eagles history. And if he wins Super Bowl MVP tomorrow, he might be the best free agent signing in the history of the NFL. I mean, he's been that impactful for this team. Derrick Henry had a monster year over in Baltimore. Josh Jacobs was pretty darn good in Green Bay. So Barkley kind of set the tone for the Eagles. And what Mike said, they needed a running back they could trust. Miles Sanders showed right from the get-go the Super Bowl 2 years ago was too big of a moment for him. And I'm not trying to slam Miles Sanders, but he fumbled on his first touch, and then Sirianni and the coaching staff basically avoided the run. They only ran, I think, 16 more times by running backs. Jalen ended up leading the team in carries and rushing yards. So you bring in a Barkley type player who can be a 3-down back, who can move guys out of his way with his physicality, can make guys miss with his elusiveness behind this offensive line. It, to me, seemed like it was a no-brainer once they realized that the Giants really just messed up their opportunity to bring back their franchise player. I still think I don't know how their GM has a job after his terrible assessment of that situation. I truly don't. For me, it's another point, but how do you not know the value of your franchise player? I don't care if he's a running back, a wide receiver, a quarterback. Saquon Barkley single-handedly brought thousands and thousands of butts into your stadium simply for the fact of seeing number 26 play. So to me, that's malpractice. But yeah, this Barkley signing has been amazing. He's been sensational to watch. He's got 11 games with over 100 yards rushing. He's averaging like a crazy 130 in the playoffs right now. So I think he's going to be a big factor. And to finish up, I think what Mike said about the blitzing and the pressure rate for the Chiefs. I know the Eagles have been a horrendous screen team. How awesome would it be if they can somehow use this 2 weeks and Kellen Moore just implements a couple of screenplays to Barkley? Not those quick bubble hitters. I'm not a fan of those to Devontae and AJ. Just have guys go deep and then just like, I don't want to say almost like Madden, but Madden, where you have all the guys going downfield and you wait, and then Barkley just slips behind. And then he's able to break a big gain, because I love Barkley in the open field. So I think that could be a big X factor for them. And my player prop, I would lean the over on Devontae Smith's yards. I'm not sure exactly where it's at, but he has been sensational against the Chiefs. He's had over 99 yards or more against the Chiefs in his 3 meetings, and that's the most yards he's averaged against any team that he's faced multiple times. And he's going to line up in the slot a lot, and Kansas City has struggled defending slot receivers this year, so I think Devontae could have a big game again.
I appreciate that. So, defensively, which is not my expertise, which I always say on Flipping the Birds, which is why we've hired Morgan into a lifetime contract on Flipping the Birds. But defensively, I think, Morgan, we said this multiple times on Flipping the Birds throughout the year, where it's like, it was mind-blowing how well put together they actually are. We didn't expect them to be this good of a defense, but kind of speaking on the young talent from Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, and the nightmare of Jalen Carter, how impressed are you guys of this defense under the first year under Vic Fangio?
Remarkably, I think, like I said this a few months back, but I didn't anticipate getting this deep into the season when you've got an offensive Saquon Barkley, who we all knew would be the best running back like ever, potentially. Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts, the best offensive line in football. I didn't think my main takeaway would be, I can't wait to watch that defense. Like, and especially after the Mike Groh, not Mike Groh, that was an infiltration. That was the wrong name. The Sean Desai and obviously all the mess that came with it. And then the Jonathan Gannon was one I was looking for. I just got intruded by Mike Groh on a Saturday morning, and that wasn't pretty. But
a little PTSD.
Yeah, but obviously, both Gannon and Desai ran versions of Fangio's scheme, and after 2 years, and then the third random change that kind of happened, you were like, "Is this scheme really working? Like, is this the way it's going to be?" Because they've tried it twice, it's not going well, and then sort of out of nowhere, they go out and get Vic Fangio, and I was very apprehensive of look, you've tried this twice, and it's like you've got some obsession with Fangio's scheme, and I don't understand what it is because none of it has worked. So you've now got the grandfather of the scheme. If this goes wrong, you're going to have to go and change something, and that's an entire scheme overhaul after 3 years of building the team. That's a difficult thing, and I was, made to look very silly because Fangio has come in, worked wonders, and I think a lot of credit has to be given to the positional coaches as well, like across the board, from cornerback to linebacker to defensive line. Everyone can talk about Zach Bourne. Obviously, I think I've done that more than most people this year due to my love affair with him. I think that more importantly, guys like Nolan Smith, I think, stand out as someone that wasn't red hot as a rookie, but in year 2 just built confidence over time. And the postseason comes around, and he's an absolute demon. The rookie class on defense has been sensational. We all speak about Quinion and Cooper DeJean. There hasn't been a lot of love for Jalen Hunt, who has been very, very good in a pinch. And I'm happy that Brandon Graham should be coming back for the Super Bowl, and that's lovely. There's a part of me that I'm like, I think J-Lix might be the more impactful player. And I know Brandon's there for sentimental value, but in the biggest game of the season, J-Lix is heating up. His confidence is through the roof. I'd just let him take the ball and run with it in that rotational role. But it's just been amazing. Like, there has not been a single weak point on that defense. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's return's been excellent. Reed Blankenship, for me, I've always said might be the Quez Watkins of the defense, where he's good, but he's not quite good enough for that next level. But I think he's taken another step again. I think he's been very, very solid this year. And yeah, it's just exciting to watch. I think all across that's the first defense in a long time where I every week cannot wait for them to get on the field. And like my girlfriend's watching it and I'm like, oh, watch this guy, right? Watch Jalen Carter here. Which one's Jalen Carter? The big one. They're all big. No, that big one there, 98. Watch him. And it's just amazing. It's so cool to watch. And I think this will be a more defensive game than people realize on Sunday. And I'm all for it because it is just absolute wizardry to watch Fangio and those troops do what they do.
Yeah, I've been really impressed. I think it's hard to find that perfect marriage of a scheme first approach and a player first personnel or approach, right? You always talk about kind of the X's and O's and the Jimmies and Joes, and you see evidence of both, right? Like you have a guy like Oren Burks that can kind of come in and fill a need right off the bench and play pretty well. And a lot of that has to do with the scheme, right? A lot of that has to do with his understanding of the defense. And so there's a perfect example of that. But on the flip side, you've created a situation, for example, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, he struggles in man coverage, right? Clearly not a great man cover guy. Well, they've gone away from that, right? They've found areas, Zach Bond, like they've found his strengths and they've put that into the defense. So there's this perfect marriage of, hey, we're going to think about what players we have and put things in for them. And we're going to teach our players the scheme. And that scheme, Liam talked about, the Eagles have struggled to run kind of these phantom versions of it. And it really does make a difference when you're able to teach it, so well, like Vic Fangio can. They play a lot of match, which means that there's a ton of reads, there's a ton of communication. And if you don't understand fully and truly what you're supposed to be reading, what you're supposed to be looking for, where your eyes are supposed to be, what you're supposed to be communicating, you end up with this like pseudo defense where it's not really the same. You're using tomato soup to make a pasta sauce. Sure, it's tomatoes, but like, it's not really the same thing, right? There's a big difference. And I think that we've just seen it. We've just seen how well, I've always talked about the biggest coaching skill is your ability to disseminate information and communicate that information. And Vic Fangio clearly is just such a great communicator. He understands how to communicate, how to teach these guys. And you see it with so many young guys picking up the scheme. But I will say that, right? Like they brought in guys that are talented and can play this scheme. And I think that that's been an issue on the defense as well. I don't know that they had the guys, in previous years, especially in the secondary, to truly run this scheme. The biggest thing for me that I've been impressed by is the front, right? You're asking a lot of guys in the scheme to win one-on-one. Like realistically, they're not blitzing more than 4 very often, right? Zach Bond, he'll mix in now that you got Oren Burks. They were throwing to Kobe Dean in a little bit early, but it's usually a 5-man pressure if they are blitzing. You're asking those guys up front to win one-on-one. And granted, Jalen Carter, he's a game wrecker, but like Nolan Smith's been winning one-on-one. Josh Sweat's been winning one-on-ones. Milton Williams has been winning one-on-ones. You have rotational guys that are winning one-on-ones. It's like, it's incredible when you have that defense and that secondary, and that's how this defense is predicated, is you're going to go kind of top down and you're asking these guys to win one-on-one, and you have 6 or 7 deep that can win one-on-ones. You're in a pretty good position. We talked about Jalen Hunt too, right? So you have a really good mix here of guys that can do a lot of different things, and at the end of the day, guys who just can win them their one-on-one battles. So it's a fantastic defense. I'm so happy that it seems like Vic Fangio is going to be here for at least a couple more years and stick around, hopefully until he retires, because it's only going to get better from here.
Yeah, I mean, Morgan said everything. That's a great breakdown. I basically the only thing I have to add is I think it's just a perfect storm this year with Vic Fangio coming in, kind of that old school, old mentality. And you heard some rumors from Miami that the players didn't really see eye to eye with him or didn't really like what he was bringing to the table. And you thought, okay, well, how are these younger players going to respond to a guy who's been in the league forever and maybe doesn't coach in a new age way or doesn't have the same philosophy? It has been a seamless transition. And yeah, it took a little while. I mean, the first 4 weeks, we were a little worried about the defense, but you're starting a rookie corner, and then Cooper DeJean comes in. So you got 2 rookies that are, going in. And then this defense, I think what's most impressive is they've got playmakers on all 3 levels. And Morgan mentioned it. You're asking these guys to win a lot of one-on-one matchups, but that's what they're doing. Jalen Carter probably solidified that win in that snow game against Los Angeles by getting to Matt Stafford. If you break down the film, they had 2 options that either would have at least given them a first down or maybe a touchdown. So that's huge. And then you go to the linebacking position. We love Zach Bond. Oren Burks has been amazing. Jalix Hunt has been filling in nicely. And I agree with Liam. I think BG being on the sideline might be more productive in uniform than actually being on the field. Now, if you tell BG, hey, you got 10 snaps, give it all you got, I'm all for it. Get after Mahomes, be disruptive, just try and find a way to make a play. But I would not break the mold that they have right now with Burks and Hunt playing and rotating on that other side on the linebacker position. And lastly, how many defenses can overcome getting an absolute goose egg from a $50 million player that they signed in the offseason that was supposed to be their legitimate pass rusher? I don't know how many defenses could have masked that and been able to still develop and draft the right guys and get them in the right mindset to say, hey, you weren't starting to start the year. You were in a limited role. Now we need you for the biggest stretch of this season and possibly in your careers, because we know how hard it is to get back to the Super Bowl. Yes, we're lucky the Eagles are now in the big game for the second time in 3 years, but a lot of people thought they were going to get back last year. Jason Kelce came back for that reason, and then he realized how hard it is to get to where they are leading in tomorrow. So I think Vic Fangio has been amazing. I agree with Morgan. I think it would be awesome for him to stay. I think he will. He's from my hometown area, so I've got a little allegiance to him, and I think it's really cool to see him not only be the defensive coordinator, but to have the success with this talented group.
Is nobody going to acknowledge my guy? Not one person acknowledged my guy.
But we acknowledge Zach Bourne, and that's your lookalike. So
no. Whoa. We all know I'm much more muscular than he is. So,
Yeah.
Nolan Smith, guys. I mean, yes, Jalen has been on a tear. You didn't mention him, did you?
Yeah.
I didn't mention him, but that's good, Brian. You do your thing. Do your thing, man. We didn't mention him. You can mention him.
No, I don't. Yeah. I've never heard of him. You tell me more.
We need to throw the instant replay flag. But Smith has been on a tear, and this is the guy that went from as the camera zooms into Liam.
For God's sake!
What you got in that box, man?
I was trying to show off my Philly shoes. I was just picking something up off the floor, and did it fully go like? That's absolutely appalling. I apologize for interrupting you, Brian.
This is a kid
let me mourn in peace. Oh, right, carry on. I'll just stay still, and it'll be fine.
This is a kid that has gone from being declared a bust after one season to possibly being the second best pass rusher on the team. He's coming to his own. We saw the quick burst off the line of scrimmage from last season, and it's translated very well this year. He's added a little bit of muscle, and he's just been efficient. And I agree with you guys. Like, if Brandon Graham's going to play this game, like, let's not take away from what's going on with Hunt and Smith. Like, these guys are really freaking good together. And I think one thing I've alluded to so much this season is that Josh Sweat last year said that the defensive line was not rushing together. Everybody's rushing for their own stats, which Hassan Reddick is no longer here. This year, we've seen a bit of what I like to call like a pick and roll rush, where you see like Jalen Carter go in the middle, he'll push the quarterback to Nolan Smith or Jalix Hunt, and they get the play done. And I feel like that's such a testament to not only what Vic Fangio has brought to this, but to the camaraderie within that group. Like these guys, their locker rooms are all close together, and they all, after the games they joke around with each other, they hang out with each other. But it just shows like that chemistry's on another level. And these three guys, like Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, and Jalen Son, I feel like are going to be not only key down the stretch for the Eagles and for seasons to come, but in this game, like these are the three guys that people should keep their eye on. We are running to the 10 minutes left in the show, so I won't take too much, right? The next question is, what's everybody drinking on Super Bowl Sunday?
It's just beer for me. I just beer, like a lot of beer, infinite beer. Yeah,
damn.
I mean, we've got this thing where we're trying to do Valentine's Day a week early just because we're both free. So we're going to this pizza place that's opened up and having a pizza festival. I'm like, that's American, Italian, but American. You get, we move there. And then we're going to come back and I'm going to make cheese. I was saying to Corey last night, I think we're going to do cheesesteaks. So I'm going to try and make cheesesteaks for the game. Just because I'm used to staying up till 6 o'clock in the morning. She's not got that in her yet. So we're going to just, energy drinks, cheesesteaks. Maybe some snacks and nachos and dip and stuff. And I really wanted to get one of those Eagles helmets where you put the snacks in top of it. But I'd left the idea till last night and was like, I'm not going to get that in time now. But yeah, other than that, just a lot of beer. And if it gets bad, maybe I'll move on to rum or something. But I'm hoping it just stays a beer.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of us talking before you hopped on, Brian. I think bourbon's got to be the go-to, but I think. For me, man, for the NFC Championship, I didn't sit down the whole time. And so, you end up with a nice glass of bourbon. You're not sitting down the whole time. I think it's got to be beer, unfortunately, for that reason. I feel like, you mix it up a little bit. Depending on how the game goes, I think you pull out the bourbon. But, I'm sure I'll have a mix. But it's got to be beer. It's a bit portable. And I move around a lot. I pace. So it's annoying for everyone else, but I don't care. Go Birds.
Can you get Cheese Whiz in the UK, Liam?
Well, not that I know of, but Passyunk, the big brand that's I think it's a street in Philadelphia. I say that, yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah. And they've got two restaurants in England, in London, that are just Philly dive bars. So when the Phillies came, it was if you ever watch an Eagles game, and they go to show clips of fans in other countries, they always show Passyunk. It's just rammed filled with Philly fans every week. But they do Whiz, and they bring in the bread from Philadelphia as well. So everyone that I've spoken to about cheesesteaks tells me it's the bread that's the main thing. And the meat's cool, but the bread is what makes it all lovely. So they fly the bread in and they do Whiz. But when I do them, I don't have that. So I just get those cheese slices and then some, I don't know, creamy stuff and try and make my own. It never goes well, but I'm a big fan of it. I wish we had it. We'll see if I'll send to Corey. Maybe as a Super Bowl parade, maybe I'll come out and then I can take some back with me. We'll see. We'll see how we go. But you can get it just at one place that I'm aware of, but you might be able to make it. I don't know.
I told Liam if he does make it out to the parade, he will see and smell things that you would not expect. I went to the parade back in 2017 and we were in the front row, and I told them how the lack of porta potties per fan ratio was not very good, and I had dudes just relieving themselves right next to me in the gutter. So it's par for the course when you're squeezing in with 20-some thousand other people in a small area, but the atmosphere is incredible. I definitely would suggest you somehow making the trip across the pond, my man, and enjoying the celebrations. For my drink of choice, I'm with bourbon too. I got a bottle of Buffalo Trace ready to go, but I think that's more of a celebratory drink, or maybe, drink away so we forget what happened, but hopefully it's the, celebrating. But yeah, I'll probably be pacing like Morgan on the edge of my seat. My problem is when I drink bourbon, I get really mellow. So it could be good because if things start, hitting the fan, I'd be like, they had a good year. But, I think it's beer for me as well.
I don't know. I mean, I'm glad that Morgan said that because I thought I was the only one, and I was losing feeling in my feet for standing too long and pacing back and forth. And then we started throwing random bets into DraftKings and started winning random money. And I was like, oh wow, I definitely can't sit down now. But yeah, I think it's the same agenda this time around. But it may be a little commercial Canadian, but I love my Crown Royal, so I'll start with that. I did tell my wife and my father-in-law that the Eagles do win. I will pop open that shady bourbon, and to celebrate. Shout out to Bird Gang Spirits because that bottle looks phenomenal. And yeah, that's what I'm going with. And my wife is making her locally famous buffalo chicken dip that is probably the best buffalo chicken dip I've ever had in my life. So I always nag her to make that.
Is Crown Royal going up in price for you guys then? Because all the I don't want to say the T word, but
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say the T word with the cheese whiz stuff, but but it's only $30 around my way, and I got the Eagles edition too, so it was pretty dope to have that jersey.
Yeah. Go Birds.
Shout out to the alumni himself. Hi, first time on time. How's Morgan still so good looking after dealing with Liam?
I hide it under a hat, brother. There's it's patchy. It's getting worse. It's thinning out. It's graying out. So the hats are the key.
I think what's happened is I decided to, buzz my hair. So now I'm closer to Brian. So Morgan's gone.
Yeah.
Well, there's no threat of anyone having hair now. So I can just relax. Get the hood out.
It's like the evolution chart where it's like you have the bald, the buzz.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure to be the hair guy on the podcast, man.
I was it literally just does go in chronological order. So you have Morgan, Corey, me, Brian.
I got a.
It's pretty flat.
Oh, I don't know. Corey might be outdoing you there a little bit.
Yeah,
Corey's winning the battle, man.
Yeah.
So far, so good. I got the grays on the sides, though. That's the scary part.
Yeah, I got grays in my beard. It's in the front. It's very annoying. All right, gents. 4 minutes left in the show. Here we go. It's prediction time. I won't go first because I'm very curious as to what's gonna transition with you guys. But whoever wants to take the lead on this, let's do it.
Go on, Morgan.
Me first?
I thought you were
pointing at you.
I was pointing up.
Oh, right. I thought you were like a school guy, just kind of putting your hand out to answer the question. I feel like my answer changes every time. And the more I think about it, I get into a frenzy. Like, when you're asking the question, I'm like, 34-28. And then it gets to, I'm like, and it's like the PTSD memes of just all these images. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I think it's going to be like 28-21, something like that to the Eagles, just because I think both defenses are great. I love the Philly defense. I can't really fault them at all. I don't think the Chiefs have got in it to stop Barkley, but I say the issue with that is that the Eagles are going to dominate tempo and control of the game in this theory. So I can't see scoring being plentiful. They will just run, 1 yard line, push 8 times, get it in. And I just can't see it being an explosive, anywhere near as explosive as last time. I think both teams have learned from that. So 28-21, Eagles win. And just I sound nervous saying it, but we're gonna go with that.
Yeah. I like it. I think it's gonna be similar. I think the biggest thing for me is that if the Eagles want to win and not give me an aneurysm and a heart attack, is they have to be up by 2 scores kind of going into the fourth, right? It doesn't have to be 2 touchdowns, but they got to be up 2 scores at least. And for me, that means holding the Chiefs to field goals early in the game. That's really what it is. There's going to be some Mahomes magic where he scores some touchdowns late in the game. You just can't avoid it. So you got to hold him to field goals early. So for me, my final score is 31-27. I think I changed that a little bit from when I was thinking about it, but 31-27 Eagles. And I think that 7 comes late in the game for the Chiefs, but it's just not enough. I think that's the situation the Eagles have to be in, is you have to be up by enough that the Chiefs can score a late touchdown and you can still hold on to the win. So 31-27 Eagles.
Well, that plays right into my prediction, Morgan. I say 30-24 Eagles, but the Saquon Barkley is going to score a late touchdown to make it 30-17, and then the Chiefs score a touchdown and make it close, but the Eagles end up holding on, more to your point of being up by 2 scores in the fourth quarter, because I do think this defense will be able to make some stops. I just can't get behind this, the Eagles are going to run them out of the building. I mean, this is still a very well-coached Chiefs team. I mean, I put it in the piece in my 5 matchups to watch with Andy Reid. His record with extra time to prepare is second to none. So the fact that, the Eagles are going to blow them out, I would be very surprised. And I think if it gets into a 30-30 shootout, I kind of think that doesn't bode well for the Eagles. I think they have to keep the Chiefs within that 20 to 26 point range to really play their game and control the way they want to control this game. So I'm going to say 30 to 24 is going to look close. I think the Eagles do dominate in most facets, and I think it's Barkley who gives them that cushion, and then they just got to hold on for the final 5-6 minutes of the game.
The first matchup was 38-35 Kansas City and the referees, right? The second matchup was 21-17, and that was with the Eagles having Sean Desai on the sideline as opposed to Vic Fangio. They held Pat Mahomes, I believe, to like 177 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, but he had 43 passing attempts. We have the nucleus, right? We have Vic Fangio here. We have Quinion Mitchell. We have Cooper DeJean. Like, there's a more complete defense this time around. I've been saying in the chat for almost all week that it's giving me that strange Seattle versus Denver again, where the Seahawks came in and just blew the shit out of the Peyton Manning and the Broncos. Corey's kind of talked me off the ledge a little bit with his last statement about the blowout. I think he's setting me up. And you got to sprinkle in the fact, and I told Liam this, when I had my firstborn in 2017, she was born right before the season. Eagles won the Super Bowl. My secondborn was just born a week ago, and Eagles are in the Super Bowl. So if we're going off that,
you know what that means, though, Brian? You gotta have like 6 kids.
That's what I said. He's gonna be a busy
bro.
Yeah, your poor wife. Yeah, if that's the conclusion we're coming to, your poor wife.
Their middle names are gonna be the Roman numerals of each Super Bowl.
Yeah.
LIX for this one, LIX.
Like, what is the quickest way, the minimum time you can do to have children? Like, it's like, how early on can you just get back at it again? How quick? So we can speed the pregnancy along.
I just watched Mad Max. That's what reminds me of Mad Max. Just gonna have like.
Oh God! I'm gonna need the Eagles to start compensating us if that's the case.
Yeah, 100%. Man.
But yeah, it feels like, with Meteor Row, like, everybody's just so disrespectful to the Eagles, especially Nick Wright and his hair. Like, just
his hair is just
his hair growth is very suspect, by the way. Like, he was on verge of balding, and I don't know where this guy turns his Tarzan.
Him and Trey Young, man, I don't understand.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But I feel like there's too much disrespect going the Eagles' way, where the trademark for the 3P, like, they're getting prepared for this. Like, it's it's like set in stone. Kansas City is gonna come up on top. I feel like the Eagles will shock the NFL, and I feel like they'll run it up on the Chiefs. And the reason that they need to run it up is because they have to outpace them. They have to outscore them. But the Eagles, in comparison to any other team, their defense can hold the line. Like, they can hold the Chiefs down. They held them down with a bum defensive coordinator, right? They in a very suspect season. I feel like this time around, like, everybody's matured. Everybody has the game plan set in their head, the rematch, the grudge match. Like, there's just too much working for the Eagles for this to not happen. So I'm going to go with, just because Corey talked me off the ledge, I'll go with 34-21 Philly. I do think it's a late score from Mahomes, and I just think, it'll be a 2-score win for the Eagles. When they throw a parade on Broad Street, the Eagles team from PSN all meets up. We all celebrate together. Drinks are on Corey, whatever it needs to be happen. But
I'm gonna have to come down for that, man. I might have
I know, my wife already told me I got to take off work for the parade.
Good.
So when would it be? Would it be that Wednesday or is it the week after?
I would assume that Thursday.
Okay, Thursday.
That would be my guess. I don't think they'd wait a whole week. I think Wednesday would be a little too soon. You figure they fly out Sunday night, they're partying on the plane, partying Monday, city gets ready. I would say Thursday.
Damn, we're already talking about them partying and everything. Hey, listen, it'll be a phenomenal game, and this won't be the last Flipping the Birds episode of the season, but it'll be the last one before the Super Bowl. So, I do want to thank everybody for everything that they invested into the show. For Liam and Zach for covering me during the time of my child's birth, for Morgan for showing up when I know your schedule is very rough over there. For Corey for filling in, and the Eagles team as well. They've all been very phenomenal. I do want to say before we end the show, and maybe I don't want to take the stop away from Liam, but we did make PSN history this morning, last night.
Last night. You
want to take the helm on that one?
Yeah. So for the first time ever, our entire an entire team of writers are now lead writers. So when I first started PSN, the idea was to have maybe 1 or 2 leads per team. And I don't know what Brian has been putting into the water on the Eagles team. I don't know what he's been cooking up over there, but it has just been the most remarkable season. And it would be, like I said to him last night, it'd be a discredit not to offer him the lead opportunity. So as of last night, Corey Nido, got the name right, is our newest Eagles lead writer and just incredibly deserving of it. So big round of applause to Corey. And I just think to all of our Eagles team, and I said this to Corey, I said it to Brian, so they're going to hear the same spiel again. But to have a team this good and the content be that in-depth is one thing. To do it consistently over a season is something else entirely. And I know I'm a bit biased, but I think this is the best Eagles coverage we've ever had. I think the access to the team has been amazing, but what they've done with it, being at games like Brian, Corey, David, and Chris is with the Flyers, obviously. They've just all done so well. It's amazing. And the cherry on the cake would be a Super Bowl win. And we can march into the new season and get cooking once again. So, just a massive thank you to all of our Eagles staff for being just absolutely generational gems, and to all of you guys for reading and watching and listening over the last 12 months. I mean, myself and Brian have put a lot in the back end of YouTube with just trying to work out how to build this, and we're starting to see some results, and we're happy that we can open our arms to more and more of you who want to hear chaotic British voices and some angry American and Canadian ones on occasion. And we're super happy to have you as part of our little corner of the internet. So go Birds, and a massive thank you, and we'll see you on the other side, hopefully as 2-time Super Bowl champions.
Yes, sir.
Thank you guys again. Really appreciate the opportunity, and it's been a huge blessing and a great time working with everybody on the staff and the Eagles team in particular, and providing these opportunities. Starting out with you guys, I was just hoping to continue to improve on my writing and just kind of stay sharp in that regard. And then the legwork that you guys have been able to put in and get credentialed and covering all the way up to the NFC Championship game, it definitely is a testament to the hard work that all of you guys have put in well before I even joined. So thank you again.
Appreciate you, Corey. And appreciate everybody that's tuning in right now. This is there's about 670 of you right at this very moment. So we appreciate you guys for tuning in. Appreciate you guys for tuning in the season. We'll see you guys on the other side, one way or another, whether we're celebrating or we're firing Corey, whatever needs to happen.
That means drinks won't be on me. That'll be all right. Yeah. Drinks are expensive on Broad Street.
Yeah.
But listen, I'm damn. Thank you guys.
I knew you'd forget your own name. I called it. I knew you were going to forget your own name.
Beginning of the show, I forgot the podcast name. Now I forgot my own name. It's okay, guys. We'll see you guys on the other side. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Liam Jenkins, Corey Nido, Morgan Burkett, and we're flipping the birds.
Go Birds.
Go Birds.
Flip.